it on, you go through the compiling, you go through the QA process, and penetration testing and everything else. The other thing which is really interesting, I think, is sort of the next generation, I'm interested to get feedback from you on, is the whole issue about wireless security. I remember, I think it was June of, I want to say 1999 time frame. I was at Microsoft at the time. I got a panic call from one of the directors of my security organization that said, "Did you hear what Bill Gates said?" And it's not as if I sit there waiting day to day to hear what the boss is going to say, because they're always saying something. And he said, and it was like April, by June, the entire Microsoft campus will be wireless. And my initial reaction was, that's pretty cool, because I'm tired of having to leave everything in my office, go to a conference room, and not being able to do whatever I need to do and drag stuff back and forth. I thought it was pretty cool. Then the security in me kicked in and go, well, wait a minute now. I'm not sure that we're secure in that, and I'm even more secure and less assured that we're prepared to deploy something like that and have security built into it, because I know how things work. Idea, deployment, secure. I mean, that's sort of the backwards way of doing things. And so I said, well, wait a minute, we need to check that. So what I did was I got a couple folks together that were really, really sharp in the 802.11, at the time it was B-Space, I guess, and said, okay, tell me what some of the issues are. And one of the biggest ones, believe it or not, that they came forth was the fact you can't control the RF. I mean, a building is built like this. The pattern is like this, so you have people sitting out in the parking lots and do all this other stuff. They could either jump on your connection or suck it down and decrypt it if you were using encryption. We'll talk about the web joke here in a minute. But basically, that was number one. Secondly is, how do you keep people from sitting on the network and sniffing the network, even sitting inside the building? We had tons and tons of people coming in and visiting and stuff. The good news at that time, wireless wasn't, built into everything that we did. So consequently, you'd be able to see somebody if they'd stuck in a wireless card or USB device. But basically, we started doing this laundry list, and it was basically says, that's nice, deploy it. So this had to go through. And that was really painful. The ability to exclude MAC addresses or manage MAC addresses in a campus with, I think at the time we had about 12,000 people in there, and people having a new box one day and then it breaking down and having a new one, the ability to manage that was just a nightmare. But we deployed it. But we've gotten better about it. The implementation of LEAP, fixing the deficiencies in the original implementation of WEP, I think 64-bit, where I forget the number of packets you can suck down, but you can decrypt the key in relatively short order, then you get access to everything on the network. Those sort of things have been resolved. We've also seen the ability to go ahead and really architecture, which is kind of a neat concept, to engineer a wireless deployment so you don't have it like 300 feet on the side of the building on this side and people on the window can't use the wireless because it doesn't work on this side. Be able to architect that and engineer it into a system is very important. What are some of the other things we're seeing now? And I've seen this happen. How many here do a lot of traveling? Not many? Oh, a little bit? Yeah, you're lucky. Because it's really cool when you're sitting there in a hotel and you pick the brand name of the hotel, and they generally have their wireless system, if they have wireless, with their hotel name. Then you see the same name about 4 other times, and the signal's not quite as strong, and you're in like a downtown New York or downtown San Francisco and go, is this really, really who I want to be connected to? So the whole concept of a rogue AP is very likely. Matter of fact, a lot of people depend on it. Outside coffee shops and fast food places now offer wireless. People sit out there and run a rogue AP and put in there and just start sucking down your data. That's what they do. The misassociation issue or misconfigured is another issue we deal with wireless that has not really been dealt with in our ability to take a non-technical, non-security person and have them be able to differentiate how to configure it right and how to not configure it right. The concept of unauthorized association. Yeah, you can go through and do MAC filtering and set a nice list and stuff like that, but that's really not really practical, particularly in a public environment. The idea of that is you want everybody to be enjoying it. A lot of the cities now are going to Wi-Fi citywide, free of charge. You can sit in the park with your laptop and do what you want to do. So you don't want to lock people out. But on the same token, you don't want people who are going to be able to sit there and try to be scanning the network, looking for vulnerabilities, and start installing keystroke loggers and all these things in your network. And the one that you don't hear, and I don't know if anybody here has heard, I've yet to hear about a denial of service attack on a wireless AP. To me, that would be the easiest thing going. I've been a ham radio operator for like 40 years, but I've never heard of anybody. Has anybody here heard of that?
I've heard of...
Is your mic on? Thanks.
We had a grad student that graduated from here a few years ago. He worked for the government in Bolivia, and they used a wireless network to connect some border system that they were using. And they had some truckers apparently with these jamming devices that were actually disrupting that network that connected their two outposts there.
Now, was that regular 802.11 or was it?
Yeah.
Somewhere? Yeah. See, and that's the thing to me that seemed to be most prevalent. If I want to really mess with somebody, I'm just going to go ahead and transmit on the same frequency and just kill the system. But that's another issue we have to deal with in wireless. And once again, right now, in a lot of cases, we either have an expectation that there'll be wireless there or there will be a wired connection. As we move away from the expectation of having the wireless there, the expectation will be we will have wireless everywhere we go. Once we have that expectation, there will be a greater dependency on it. If it doesn't exist, we're going to be hosed. It's just like use of GPSs. I've got one of these. I don't have it with me. One of these $200 portable GPS, battery operated. You can select what type, whether you're on foot, a bicycle, whether you're driving a fire truck or a car, and it just really, really works good until the battery goes dead, and you don't have your charger with you, and you go, map? I don't have a map. And even if I had one, I'm not sure I know how to remember to read a map anymore. It doesn't have the detail. It doesn't have the ability to put in, I want to go from West Lafayette to Chicago via 65, or I want to go some other route. It doesn't have that in there. So consequently, our dependency on wireless is becoming greater. It's great that we deploy it, but we have to deploy it in a secure manner. And once again, it goes back to the old, dream of, deploy, and then secure. That's the wrong way of doing things as well. Sort of the next thing I want to touch on very briefly is peer-to-peer networks. Now, I'm not talking about instant messaging. I'm not talking about some of the file sharing things that we do on a legitimate basis, nor is I'm here to debate the issue on intellectual property and digital rights management and all the pros and cons that go with that. I'm talking about just things like LimeWire and eDonkey and Gronkston and these sort of things, which traditionally used to share some sort of digital media like movies and music and stuff like that. What we've seen is a couple things taking place. I want to give you some statistics here that came from McGraw-Hill, Nielsen, CashLogic, Tyversa, a lot of different companies came out with this. At the end of, or the beginning of 2005, it's about almost 2-year-old information now, so I'm sure it's significantly more. On an average day, there would be an estimated 200 million searches a day on Excite, Google, MSN Search, and Yahoo. About 200 million searches. So if you think that's about 2-year-olds, you probably want to double that amount. That's just on the World Wide Web search engines. On peer-to-peer networks at that time, there were about 800 million searches per day. 800 million searches per day. Once again, you double that based on what's happened over the past couple of years. And that's a whole lot more searches on peer-to-peer networks than what we've got on the World Wide Web searches that are out there. And what happens traditionally, they're searching for things like Black Eyed Peas or, Black Sabbath or whatever, who their favorite artist would be. They're searching for those sort of things is what most of us think, except those in security. When we go look at some of the searches and we start sucking down what the search patterns are, and what we see taking place in that case is they're searching for things like internal audit reports, RFPs, RFQs, human resource records, network designs, network migration plans, double-blind trial results, and on. And by the way, these terms I'm reading to you from the screen up here are real live terms that are being searched for on peer-to-peer networks. And like one of the infomercials, and there's more. We also see in these areas, here's some specific ones in the medical field, which I find really interesting. These are the searches that are being done. Care Office NBC Health, NBC standing for Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Health. Medicine, mental health, CRC of, hospital records, mental hospitals, hospital letterhead, hospital records, Niagara Hospital, American Medical, Connolly Medical, UPS, prostate, data entry, medical billing, and I've got like 70 different terms just from one bad guy that was searching for stuff on the peer-to-peer network. So here we have people installing peer-to-peer network for what they think is legitimate purposes, not realizing in some cases, when not configured properly, in some cases just by default, shares more than just, say, the music file. It shares out their entire documents file, or in some cases shares out their entire drive. So that is being exposed, which is half of the problem, the vulnerability.